Hey everyone, Travis Gafford here in my studio space, my elaborate TGI studio. I'm joined right now by Perry to talk a little bit about the amateur scene and the academy scene. And before you're clicking away because you're like, wait, what? I think this interview has a lot to do with the LCS and the state of North America talent. And I requested the interview for a couple of reasons, which we'll get into. But how was it going? You had an announcement recently. Do you want to talk about what you've announced?
Yeah, I'm officially done with esports. I think the scene has progressively gotten worse for academy amateur players. Like going to LCS just feels impossible now.
Oh, yeah.
It feels like it was already hard before. It's just impossible.
Yeah. So we actually did an interview a year ago. Okay. Do you want to remind everybody what that interview was about? What was going on then?
We just touched up on how the scene is just already hard a year ago, and it just doesn't seem like it's gotten better whatsoever.
Well, at the time you had qualified in, right?
Yeah, I'd had multiple offers for academy teams, and none of it mattered because the moment I had offers, I had the contract in my face. Riot announced, "Hey, academy's gone."
Yeah. So then you decided to continue to play for the past year.
Yeah.
Why was that? What ended up leading you to continue to compete?
A few things. Friends, and competing is fun at the end of the day. Riot made some promises as well, I guess you could say. Like they seem very hopeful always. Like, the scene's gonna look better, we're gonna have more money, we're gonna, we're gonna have sponsors, and NACL will be good. And it's just like it never ended that way. So,
yeah. So they announced last year at this time that teams would no longer be required to have academy teams.
Right.
At the time, we had 10 teams in the LCS, and I think 8 of them dropped, right?
7.
Oh, because EG kept, right?
EG kept, that's right.
Yes. So 7 of them dropped their teams. You lost your offers because these teams were no longer existing. And now we find ourselves a year later with only 8 teams in the LCS and only 2 teams that have secondary teams. I know NRG has a partnership with, I think, Wildcard.
Supernova.
Oh, Supernova, right. Supernova. And so,
maybe it's Fear. Anyway.
No, I think it's Supernova. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. And so obviously there's a little bit there, but it's a very different space.
Right.
So, let's dive into this a little bit. For those that are not familiar with your background, how long did you play in this amateur and secondary ecosystem?
Yeah, so I've been competing for about 3 years now. I started off at the the bottom of the bottom, wildcard developmental. Like you can even say that like tier 4. Like no one really knew what that was. Make my way up. I think back then actually, Scouting Grounds was a huge event. That's where Blabber came out. I'm sure you recognize a few other pros from old Scouting Grounds.
Yeah, I think Palafox was there at one point in time. There's a lot of people that went through Scouting Grounds, yeah.
Scouting Grounds was the way to go. So I actually, I qualified through solo queue, and I somehow beat odds, and I won the whole event, which got me noticed as a complete rookie. Yeah. But I ended up going on Evil Genius Prodigies, which was, again, like a tier 3 team. We didn't do too great. So that's where, feeling down. But luckily, in the summer, this is when Dignitas transferred River to Golden Guardians. The Academy jungler went up. They need someone middle of the splits. I'm here. We play. We get to second. We go to the finals where they do it on the stage. Really happy that Academy like did that. And from there, I played on Fear afterwards. We didn't win the finals, but I played on Fear for the next year. That's when 2023 spring, I played on Fear, and afterwards, we did really good considering we're an amateur team. You can say in NACL, there were the 10 academy teams, 6 amateur teams. We got 4th. There were a lot of these academy teams that are getting paid like 4 times the amount we were making, and I think that really set people that surprised people. So I ended up getting 3 offers from that. And that's where things are going great. My career, I bounced back from Dignitas. I have 3 offers in my face. I choose one, and it's just things are going great. I even put a deposit on an apartment because, I really thought it was happening.
You had financial offers in front of you in the same way somebody would get an offer for a job. Yeah.
And so I was setting myself up, making sure that I was right next to the office, right next to everything. Right? They're just wait, we can't sign this just yet. We need to wait for Riot. Okay, we wait a week and a half, and I'm just I'm in stasis the whole time.
Yeah.
Boom, Riot says No more academy teams. No necessary.
Which is funny because you say they needed to wait for Riot, but like ultimately they were waiting for permission from Riot to not operate this, right? It's not like they're like, oh no, Riot told us we can't hire you. They're like,
true,
yes, Riot told us we don't have to hire you.
It's so sad too because Riot also like promised. They promised the academy scene they wouldn't do it until the end of the year.
Oh yeah.
They said that. They said, hey, we won't touch academy. We won't do this. We won't push for it until the end of the year. That's why it was like, okay, I'm at least here for one split. I can have a good time as a starter. It's gonna be a good run. They go it through anyway. So yeah, that's where Disguise joined the scene.
Yeah.
And that's where the academy ecosystem kind of got a lot more recognition, I'd say. And I ended up playing on Disguised this last splits. We had an okay run, but honestly, that's just where it's like, why am I here?
Yeah.
I just felt like, I'm on a great team and roster's pretty good, but it just didn't feel the same. It didn't feel like the same motivation I had before. I'm not pushing for academy. I'm on the best team already, but how to make it to LCS? The breach is like hard.
Yeah. Well, one of the reasons I asked you about your history here, especially hearing that you had offers from teams for their academy teams, was to establish, because I think a lot of people watch this and they'll be like, all right, this is just a salty guy that couldn't get it. He's not good enough to get in. And so he's just saying that he doesn't want to do this anymore. But clearly you had multiple times during the last 2.5, 3 years where you were recognized for your skill. And, with more development, you possibly could have made it in. What do you think of, because again, a lot of those people watching right now, they might say like, well, we've got Masu that made it in. We've got these other players
Jojo,
that are, right. There are these other players that are making it in. Yeah. So why are you saying, that you feel like there's not a spot for you?
I mean, it's hard already. There's not a lot of teams. There's so much competition. So I definitely understand that like it's not for everyone. But the problem is these orgs, they don't give too many chances. I would say it's very rare to see NA talent get pushed up. I mean, there's a copy in the past where he also had a similar situation where he's been in an academy year after year and he's performing, he's doing great. They don't give him a chance.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of other academy players that deserved at least a shot on a team, but they'd rather import. They'd rather import so they can win, but they're not winning. Yeah. So it's like, okay, so can you develop us? And then clearly NRG, they took some chances on NA talent. They took, APA on Team Liquid, and like they're doing great. Jojo's doing great. Moss is doing great. I think sometimes they just need to take more chances, and they're just not. So.
Well, at this time last year, whenever the teams were getting rid of their secondary teams, or the orgs were getting rid of their second teams, a lot of team owners, or a lot of the conversation was like, oh, academy scene just doesn't work because we don't get enough players out of it to like justify the cost. And so they were kind of putting it back on the system and saying that the system is what's wrong. That's why we can't get these good North American players on our team. Now a year later, what do you think of that sentiment?
I think they could have been overpaying by a bit. Yeah. I do understand. Like, it's not financially amazing, but we had a great ecosystem. We would scrim LCS teams and beat them. We would compete against them. So I don't know like what they're doing scouting wise, or like just what are they thinking? Where it's like we can compete and give us a chance to play amongst these other LCS players. We have a place. Yeah. And they don't want to give us a chance. They'd rather import. They'd rather, this veteran who's been playing for 10 years, he retired, but he's coming back. Let's get him instead. They don't give chances. It sucks.
Yeah. All right. So what, in your mind, what is the path to pro like now for somebody who wants to do this? Like somebody's watching this interview, they're, 16, 17, and they grew up watching LCS. Their hero is Doublelift or Sneaky or Meteos or one of these players, and they really want to be that person. Right. What do you say to that person now if they want to make it into the LCS?
It's never been harder than before. Like, this is like the hardest it's ever going to be probably. Like, hopefully it'll get better. But at the end of the day, there is an amateur scene. There's an amateur route. You got to be the best of the best. And even if you're the best of the best, there's still a chance you won't make it, but you have to be there. You have to get rank 1. You have to, beat everyone else in academy. You have to stand out like what Masu did. Masu didn't win necessarily, but he stood out. People acknowledge, wow, this guy is really good. You have to either beat everyone, stand out. You have to do all of it. And even when you do all of it, there's still going to be a chance where teams won't acknowledge that. Teams might have a narrative on you that's not as great. But you defy all odds, and if you really want it, you push for it. There's always chances.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, there is. It's even though it sucks, there always is.
So there might be chances. But I also am curious for that person, what kind of development resources are there for them, right? Because and how much has that changed in the past year? I'm not saying that because I'm trying to put words in your mouth. More just like I am honestly curious. If somebody wants to go to the LCS, how much is the system and infrastructure that Riot and the teams have cultivated, how much is that going to help them become a better player?
It sucks to say, but the ecosystem is not great in the sense that there are people who stand out and they perform and they deserve LCS shots, but many of the players who are coming in, they get coached by people who should not be coaching. They get put around teammates who are just bad, who just ruin their careers in a sense. And it's just like as it comes to developmenting your developmental to get to LCS, it's already hard, and I don't think Riot has really done much other than make the OQs, made the open qualifiers. They've made a little bit more stuff to compete in, but at the end of the day, the things that go on in the amateur scene are it gets really shady too. Sometimes these orgs aren't even paying the players, and it's just there's a lot wrong already with the developmental scene, and it's such a challenge. So.
There's been a lot of conversation around the decision to not require teams to be in Los Angeles. And I think a lot of that was around the idea of California is an expensive state to be in. Yeah. If you are trying to salary somebody, I think it's something like $62K, $64K, something like that you just have to pay somebody baseline. Right. And obviously it's expensive to live in LA. So you have to maybe rent a place for people, or you have to give them enough that they can afford to rent that. Yeah. What do you think, how has it changed since teams have no longer been required to have, to be in LA, to be in a central location, have scrims be all online and that type of stuff?
I think it's made things worse by a long shot. I think, I've heard from other pro players that they're just being online sucks. It's you're playing a game in the first place. So, a sport, basketball, football, and these, you're with your team and you see them and you play with them and you connect with them. When you were in person, at least before in California, you go to the facility. When I was on Dig, go to work, I see everyone, we eat together, we do things together. It's a good time, even when things are bad. When things are bad online, it's terrible. Yeah. There's no way to open. There's no way to open up yourself and tell them what's going on. It's so much harder. So, it actually has just probably negatively impacted the growth as well, the growth potential for the scene as well. It's just how am I supposed to communicate with all these players when I don't even know if they're listening to me at some point?
I know a year ago Riot announced this, and it was kind of a last minute thing, right? As you said, you had the expectation you would get the full year. Right. And then I guess maybe 4 months into the year was around when they decided that they weren't going to require the teams to do this anymore. At the time, I think there was a assumption that Riot would make a lot of changes, especially going into this year, to help fix some of the damage that had been done from burping these teams out of the system. Yeah. Do you think that they have done much to do that? I know they talked about an international event. What's your sense of all that?
I think they've definitely helped and they've tried, but it's just nowhere near the promises that they've made. I feel if they did these things and they just did it because they wanted to and they wanted to support the development, it'd be a good thing. It'd be a positive. But they're always promising we're going to fix everything. And it's just no, nothing is really fixed. It feels worse.
When you say promises, for the people that aren't less familiar with the scene, what have been some of the things that they have led you to believe would be solved? Yeah. And, where are you seeing this shortfall?
Just, they said, they're trying to get more sponsors so they can pay the orgs so the orgs can give us more of a salary. And then we hear orgs taking money potentially from us. And we hear either they're trying to get player cards, some sort of way that we can generate more revenue in the academy scene. So, we can sustain and get more of a salary. And it's just none of that has really happened. Yeah.
When you say player cards, you mean like trading cards?
Yeah, I believe they were talking about that at some point.
Yeah. Yeah. So for you, you feel like they've said like, oh, hey, we recognize these issues. We're going to try to bring more money into the space.
Yeah.
And then they just have not.
Yeah.
So where, from the perspective of a player who wants to get into it, I know you said like, hey, if you really want to get through this, maybe you can, if you try really hard and you go through it. But what would you recommend for that player, right?
Give it a year or two. Do your absolute best and give it your all. Like even when things are bad, you just keep going at it. But at the end of the day, like financially, like you need to be in an okay situation. You need to be able to, have a lot of support, and just like it needs to be a really diehard passion where like you'll give it your all. And even if it's a diehard passion, even if you have all that support, like just know that like there doesn't need to be expectations and just have fun. I think bottom line, the one thing I like regret is I was so stressed about getting to academy, getting to LCS, 10 hours a day, 15 hours a day. The Koreans, they're playing 15 hours. Okay, I gotta play 15 hours. And I'm sleeping, like I'm not trying to sleep at all. I'm just trying to play, get good, review. And it's just like, the days blended. I felt sad. We lose a game and I'm just like, I'm not gonna make it. I'm a failure. Like I'm a failure. And then it's just like, no, just have fun at the end of the day.
If you were to create a job description for this person, like they're applying for this job, right? They're graduating high school and they're thinking like, okay, I'm going to go to college, or I could go get, some job working in some like manufacturing industry or something like that. What does this job description look like? How many hours a week? What's the pay like? What are the expectations?
You're working maybe like 70 hours a week.
70.
It's like 10 a day, yeah. Like, there's like no breaks. If you break, like you feel bad because someone else is out there and they're probably grinding. Okay,
so the amateur player who wants to go get into, like maybe they want to get into the Team Liquid Academy team or something like that.
Yeah.
Their expectation, the job would say you work 7 days a week, 10 hours a day.
Sometimes I could even argue like more because you have to make it to those other people who are already academy. Like why do you get to replace someone who's already on the academy team? Like those guys are probably already working those 70 hours. Yeah, you're gonna have to work more. Like it's hard.
Okay, so that's the minimum requirement for hours maybe. For job description, it's just play a ton of League of Legends, or you're also competing and stuff, or
you got to win.
Okay,
you got to get very high rank.
Okay,
you have to review your games.
So minimum requirements, very high rank. You'll be expected to review your games. You'll be expected to compete in these amateur tournaments and that type of thing, right? Yeah. Okay. What's the pay and the benefits right now?
No benefits.
Okay, so no benefits, no health insurance, nothing like that.
No, you get. I mean, if we're ready to break it down, $1,000 to $2,000 a month.
$1,000 or $2,000 a month. So you're gonna work a 70-hour week. Yeah. And you will get no benefits, and you'll make between $12,000 to $24,000 a year. Yeah. You get some tournament winnings, right? Or is there money?
You gotta win. If you win, a good amount. Yeah, you split it 5 ways, but
okay. And so, what is a good amount?
I've won a tournament. I make like $2,000. I get fourth. I get like my share is like $1,500, $2,000.
Okay. And how many of those are there? Like even if you're winning every single one of these, how many are there a year?
3 or 4.
3 to 4. Okay, so your salary, your compensation is $12,000 to $24,000 a year, and you can get bonuses of up to another $8,000 if you win everything and you're top of class.
If you're first, it's probably a little more. Since I'm getting like 4th, it's maybe like 15,000.
Okay. Okay. So maybe you can get close to like 36K if you are getting paid the highest and you're winning everything. Yeah. And you're working 70 hours a week. Yeah. No vacations, I assume. Little time off here and there?
You can take it, and then someone else is going to beat you.
Gotcha.
That's the problem. Like, you can take as much time as you want.
But you're playing video games, right? So this is like the dream job for so many people, right? I mean, that's what a lot of people say, right? I would love to, if all I have to do is play video games 70 hours a week, sure, 36,000 sounds fine, right?
That was my hope too. I'm coming in. I just get to play games. Oh my God, was I wrong? It's just a lot of stress. That's why, I would say, okay, if you're playing that much, have fun at least. Don't stress yourself with all of it. But that is the requirement to make it, to actually get to academy. No joke. I I can show you. I have spreadsheet after spreadsheet. I have reviews when Champs Q came out. I reviewed every single game. I wrote like a bunch of work. I do crazy reviews.
Yeah.
Just to even get a chance at Academy.
It's not just queuing up. It is also like doing all this stuff.
Yes, you have to. It's like I'm tracking all my deaths. I have my own recording software that I'm recording my games, and it's a lot more. And it's just like the stress is there. And obviously, the stress to play in LCS, to go to Worlds, it's way more. So it's not like it gets easier.
Right.
It's not like when you get to Academy, oh, I work 10 hours a day to get here. Maybe sometimes you slack, whatever. Now you're in Academy. You have to beat everyone else in Academy. Okay, now you get to LCS. You have to beat everyone else in LCS. And some people it comes easier, I would say. Like, you don't have to work as hard. But I feel like for the bare minimum, like, you have to be at that amount of time working. Like, just playing the game, grinding.
Okay. I mean, so we'll wrap up the interview, but as you exit the space, two quick questions. One, how optimistic are you on the future for North American talent? Because a year ago, we heard from teams and they said, hey, the Academy scene is not doing enough to provide us with North American talent.
Yeah.
Do you think now that it's going to get any better? You know, if it was difficult before, are we closing the gap a year later?
I think, luckily, because the JoJo, Masu, APA, they took chances and they're showing us like the power of, hey, like you can get good, and they're showing us like, hey, like rookies have a chance. I think it can get better, and I think orgs are going to be more willing to take these risks. But when it comes to like the financial side of things, like I feel like these rookies are still getting paid like not the greatest. But yeah, I think I am more hopeful now than ever. It's just like for the longevity, it's just like it's still hard.
What do you think of the C9 Thanatos rumors while Licorice is sitting outside of that, right? and presumably maybe some top laners in the Academy scene.
I mean that's the other thing. Like the actual LCS player, like Licorice, who went to Worlds and everything. Like, he's waiting there, and on top of that, you have players like Surdy who also had a LCS job on Evil Geniuses before. They don't have jobs now. Now Surdy won all of Academy. And like no one's even considering him at all, and it's just like, as far as I know, and it's just like, it sucks that Licorice isn't able to get the spot. But what about these Academy guys? Like it's like, okay, if Thanatos isn't getting the job, then Licorice will, and if Licorice won't, then maybe another veteran will, and if they won't, then it just sucks. I feel like it's still just they're gonna import, they're gonna find these veterans. And, there's just not enough spots at the end of the day.
So, okay, are you completely out of League of Legends, or where can people find you? Because I know you've been doing some content stuff as well. So if people are watching this interview and they want to follow up with you, where can people find you?
I stream. It's just Perry Jung, JG, and I coach as well. I think, like, at the end of the day, like, League is a complicated game. There's so much that happens. So I feel like coaching is just such an awesome avenue. So I coach, I stream, and I love League, but I'm not touching League. Like I realized playing the game has made me like a worse person. It feels. Okay. I'm not touching the game. I'll coach. That's what I've been doing. But yeah.
Well, after putting so much into it for 3 years, I can understand why you would like a bit of a break. If people do want to find your coaching services, where can they hit you up for that?
On my stream, on my YouTube, on Twitter, anywhere, anything, you can reach out to me. Okay. Most of the things I do is through Discord. I have a Metafy as well. Sure. All those avenues.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Well, we'll try to put a link to something like that so people can find you. But thank you so much for the interview. I'm sorry that you had to go through everything. I really wanted to talk to you about this because I a lot of people know that I have at the time in the past been like, hey, I don't think that the focus of NACL or Academy should be about viewership.
Right.
Because I feel like it should be about development.
Yeah.
And I feel like as viewership did not pan out, we saw the results of that, right? Where Riot and the teams divested themselves from really spending much in the space or doing much in the space. And now we're seeing the results of that, the fallout, right? Which is that there's a lot of players who there's just not a path for them anymore, right? You were talking about Surdy, so that's a good example, but yourself included. So, but again, thank you for the interview. For everyone else, you can check out the rest of my coverage of all things League of Legends esports right here on my YouTube channel. Thanks so much for watching this video. If you want to support content like this, especially when I don't have a sponsor, there's a great number of ways to do so in the link tree in the description below. Doing so makes it so that I can keep making these videos for you and I don't just disappear into history like so many other people in esports before me.